I'd like to call the meeting of the Water, Waste and Environment Committee to order on this February 3rd at 9:35 a.m. We are meeting here on Treaty 1 land, the homeland of the Anishinaabe, or traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and the Dakota people. And we are also on the homeland of the Red River Métis. And we also receive our water from Shoal Lake Band 40 in Treaty 3 territory. I'm Ross Eady, and this is my first meeting to chair.
No.
And well, I just want to start off by acknowledging a really great standing committee team that's here at the table. We have Councillor Chambers, who has police board and government experience. We have Mr. Brian Mays, who is a very, Councillor Brian Mays from St. Patel, who is, I call him our detail person, and he's very good at this portfolio, and I'm going to rely on you, Councillor Mays. And Councillor Rowlands, who has a lot of government experience as well, and has chaired a 3 or 2 stand. Anyway. Two, and has great experience. And again, I'm hoping we can work together as much as we can as a team. So also with us today, we have Mr. Shanks, who's the Director of Water, Waste and Environment. And he's brought his some team members to deal with some of the reports. And we also have today our senior clerk, Mr. Brendan Harris. And I think that's it. Do we have any delegations?
No delegations, but we will need a motion to accept the meeting.
Oh, sorry.
The minutes in the last.
Great. Would you move those minutes, Councillor Chambers? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. We'll get to the suspending the rules when we get to that report. Okay. So we have report number 1, which is the payment options for customers removing lead pipes from their water line. And Mr. Shanks?
Yes, this is a verbal report. This was a request from last year. We had a motion at the time. We were talking about different assistance we provide customers, and coming back with a quick verbal report to explain, what options folks have when we're talking about the underground portion of the people's water service line when it's lead. So it's a really brief report, really. The assistance we provide right now, what the city does, is that during planned replacement of city water mains, like when we're doing water main renewals, we will often, because the records don't always indicate accurately who has a lead pipe and who doesn't on the underground portion. So when we're doing a water main renewal of the public side of the water service, and when we discover by exposing the part we're replacing, if we expose the private part that we're connecting to and it turns out it's lead, we notify the homeowner because we give them a chance to kind of coordinate a replacement of the remaining underground pipe at that same time. The idea is that we've got the excavation open, they don't have to go to cut permit, they don't have to do any of that work. They can usually get a substantial discount from a contractor to come and do their portion of the pipe at that time. So when we discover it's lead, we notify the homeowners and we will leave the excavation in a safe condition and open for, I believe it's a 10 days, 10-day window at least. And we'll coordinate with them if they want to go ahead and replace it. It's still on them though. It's still a private contractor replacing their private pipe and their private plumbing. So that's not direct financial assistance, but it's certainly support for customers that find themselves in that scenario. The average cost of these things these days is probably about $7 to $9 grand to do the replacement. So it's a lot. Some house insurance packages will cover replacement for leaks and that sort of thing. So we do recommend homeowners look into that, just getting service line coverage for their homes. If it's an option for them, it can really help if one of these things shows up and it's a surprise leak. So we don't provide that direct funding to support them, no. The other thing we do is sometimes if we're not doing a renewal ourselves and a homeowner is is replacing or upgrading or modernizing, right? And they approach us to replace the remaining city side, like kind of the opposite scenario where they're doing renewal and we weren't, and they want it to be non-lead all the way to the main. We will often try to coordinate our side of it, especially if we have crews available. We will try to coordinate that in short order, or at least get it on a list for that year, so that we help them take advantage of replacing the full service line. So that's those are the sort of things we do for lead services. And of course, I should mention, anytime we talk about lead service pipes, we do use a lead control. We have a lead control program. We use orthophosphate in the water to coat the pipes. It bonds with the lead, forms almost like a coating inside the lead pipe to stabilize it. It's a long-standing program we have to limit people's exposure to lead in their homes.
Questions, colleagues?
Just one.
Okay.
How often would you say you do the, A part, right? Open the 10-day window, and how often do you do B part, i.e. the homeowner initiates and the city then will come in?
Don't have a solid number, but based on the 10 years I spent in water services, I know that we do, it's infrequent. I would say maybe one or two times a year, homeowners will take the opportunity to do it. A lot of times people just continue on. They decline the coordinating effort, but it does happen. And then the other part where someone's doing a renewal, usually it's someone's building a new home or infill lot sort of thing. That happens probably the same frequency, maybe a handful of times a year. So it's not a lot.
Less than a handful, 1 or 2 times a year.
I'd say less than 10. I'd say this times when we do maybe 5 or 6. Yes.
But still worth communicating with the city.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. And the customer initiated request to replace the system, that is always operationally dependent. Like we don't, that's, we're doing that with we're doing that with the same folks that are doing water main repairs. So if we're super busy, that can be delayed sometimes. But if we're doing other proactive work, we can slot it in.
Council Hayes, no? No. Council Chambers? Nope. We pretty well already have a list of all the residential properties with lead pipes, don't we, given the testing program?
Well, there's the homeowner, there was a voluntary participation in that new, like the rules changed on how we're supposed to report on lead a couple of years ago. I guess it's more than a couple of years ago now. And so there was kind of a voluntary, we had to pick a certain subset of homes to test in. So we put that out there, and we have a lot of candidate homes. So we're trying to rotate that around and get to as many as possible. But the records on the underground portion, like homeowners usually know if they have lead pipes in their homes. But once it leaves the home and it's underground, we have records that indicate, with reasonable accuracy where these things are, but they're not always. There's a substantial number. When you're talking about thousands of services, you up by a few percent, you end up with a few hundred places that are lead that don't show lead on the records, or that are the reverse. So it is kind of a bit of a gray area there sometimes. So the orthophosphate program is really kind of the backstop to all that.
Actually, Councillor Yidi, I do have a question. So in situations like schools and businesses, how is it being reported to make sure that our schools are free of lead-free pipes?
That is a good question, and I can't think of the answer off the top of my head, but I could get that back to you. We do, I believe institutional and commercial buildings are reported differently to Health Canada. I can't recall exactly, but I can get that information on how it's reported or monitored in other.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. The last question I had was just when the department's planning out water main renewals, you're prioritizing lead?
No, the main driver for those is the service life, the estimated service life remaining in the main. So it's essentially what that means is break frequency. So when a section of main gets to a certain number of a certain service level where it's starting to break, so many breaks per kilometer per the last 5 years, is been a kind of a very coarse indicator of when a main is about to like be completely, it's not worth doing a repair. You might as well replace the whole block. So that kind of coarse indicator is what they use to prioritize the renewal list. We do bump things onto that list depending on try to coordinate with road renewals. So like if a section of main is close to being getting on the list, but they're going to redo the street, well then we'll do the main before they redo the street so that we're not digging up a new street.
Good. All right, councilors, somebody want to move the verbal report? So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Report number 2, implementation of water bill protection initiative.
Yes, this is another verbal report, and it kind of came out of the same conversation last year that the first report came out of. So basically, this is an update on a couple of things we're doing to try to help with affordability. And the first item we're reporting on is the H2O Help to Others program. So this is a program that we've partnered. It's delivered by Salvation Army. It's actually not specific to City of Winnipeg water and sewer bills. For example, Manitoba Hydro participates in this as well. But basically, it's a program that is it's set up to help low-income individuals or families who are having difficulty paying any kind of utility bill. So what we're trying to do, like part of the intake of that program is through our interface. Like we take the applications and forward them on. So the first thing that we were looking at based on this conversation last year was making it more accessible. Like the things that customers are asked for to qualify, this sort of thing. We were trying to streamline and make it easier for customers to apply, like making it easier for them to qualify, but also sharing the program, even the existence of the program, sharing it with other social assistance agencies, so that there's more awareness of it, so that assistance is out there and that customers that need it are aware of it. Part of this too is like we set the maximum credit available for an individual customer. This is part of a policy we've had for many years, and we adjust it as time passes and things like inflation and rates climb and this sort of thing. So we have to adjust that limit. Last year, we actually increased the limit. It used to be $400 maximum for a family of 4. We moved it up to $550. We are, in light of potential impending rate changes upcoming this year, we're going to revise it again, obviously. The other thing we'd also like to do is start including any of these the solid waste fees that may be in place or may be put in place to help with the financial stability of the solid waste model. That's a different report altogether. But we wanted to make sure that the Help to Others program wasn't just limited to water and sewer bill going forward. So those are the kind of changes we're making with that. We don't have our finalized proposed changes for 2025 because, as I mentioned, we are looking at a couple of different rate changes potentially in the next few months here. So, yeah, so we're needing to update that program. And once we get it updated, we're going to reflect the changes on our website, and we could come back and report on that later in the year if that's helpful to. We could do another verbal report on this to keep the committee aware of what we're doing in terms of affordability, because I'm sure there will be a conversation going forward. The other section is the water leak credit policy. So we have this existing water leak credit policy where if a single family residential and nonprofit customers, if they have as I'm sure most councillors here know, water leaks can become extremely expensive very quickly. It's quite surprising to a lot of people because at first glance it doesn't seem like you could use that much water in a short amount of time, but you actually can. It adds up very quickly. So we do have this policy for assistance to single family residential and nonprofit customers. They get a big break. There's a couple of qualifiers. You have to be resident You have to have actually had a leak and had provided us a reading. You can't be late on readings. You have to be providing us regular readings to qualify. And you have to prove that you've fixed the repair, like an invoice for the plumber or this sort of thing. And then you can qualify for leak assistance, where we will basically cancel out the cost of that leak. And you will adjust your bill to reflect what your average uses were. So they are, we do inform folks. I mean, there's information on the web for sure, but when you get a high bill and it's obviously it was a leak, we do inform customers at that time with that bill so that they're aware of it if they qualify. The actions we're trying to do to improve this, or we want to turn the whole application process into a web form to make it more accessible. There's a bit of a delay in implementing that right now because we're working on other web forms a little bit higher on our priority list to help work towards where we want to get with our whole billing system. So it's in the works, but it's not done yet at the time of this report. Now I'm talking about the changing of the web form. Yeah, so that's the leak credit policy. Like I said, it's very targeted to certain scenarios, like businesses don't qualify. And like I said, if you're not providing regular readings, you haven't provided us a reading in a couple of years, and you get this big leak, you don't qualify for this. So the takeaway is, please provide us regular readings, and we can help you out if things go sideways. There's one more. The payment gateway project is something we've been working on, and we had mentioned it last year. So the very quick update on this one.
Sorry, this is the payment gateway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, payment gateway. So we're trying to get our My Utility account holders set up so that they could pay their utility bill directly online, and also pay for other water and waste permits, license and services, this sort of thing. So we do have about almost half of our customers subscribe to My Utility. So looking at online information, online billing. And so we want to take advantage of this. There's a big bump during Canada Post strike, people signing up. So right now you have the options of using online banking or telephone banking or paying at your institution, paying in person at a couple locations too, but we want to get it set up so that you can pay directly to the My Utility account. So it's taking a lot of work. And we started by the first stage in that is this customer licensing information and compliance portal. It's got an acronym, CLIck. So the CLIck portal is what we were working on first, and it has to do with like commercial licensing first, and it helps with inspection enforcement. It's mostly for commercial customers, but that was kind of our priority one to get set up. That is on track to be set up probably in the second quarter this year. And then after that, we want to move to the next stage where we want to get our residential customers set up with the ability to do this. So the idea here was try to make it easier for customers, more convenient for customers to pay installments or whatever directly through their account that they're already using. So that was the verbal report on the payment gateway project.
Any questions, Councilor Ely?
You have questions? Yeah. Actually, I'll let you go ahead.
Councilor Owens, then Councilor Chan.
Yeah.
I'll reverse it, starting with the My Utility. You mentioned mostly commercial customers, second quarter. So when would the residential customers be set up? What is the timing and plan for that?
We're trying to get it by the end of this calendar year, so I'd say fourth quarter, so sometime late in the year.
And then, and so that's the payment gateway project.
Mhm.
The acronym CLIck,
Yes.
can you tell me?
The Customer Licensing Information and Compliance Portal. So we've got about 700 licenses and permits that we're going to move onto the system. And, that has to do with wastewater haulers or folks that have backflow devices that need regular testing and certification. And some residences that have pools, there's pool licenses, that sort of thing. So we're trying to move those folks on first because they have a lot more regulatory and billing transactions than the regular customer? Was it just their normal water and sewer bill?
Another question, pertaining to the H2O Help Others program. So currently you can go on the city site, you have a quick eligibility scan on the site. You have an application. Coupled together, these are three of the affordability measures I assume you're doing a deeper dive into before the utility rates come out at some point, perhaps next meeting, March.
Trying to get it as soon as possible, yes, so.
So what, with respect to this, are you looking at different eligibility? And then ultimately, it's a program with the Salvation Army, but who is the funder?
We fund the Salvation Army administers the interface between the customers, but they apply our qualifying criteria, and they vet different income status, this kind of thing. So what we're trying to do essentially is make it more accessible, make it more widely known, make it more easier to apply. But also, I mean, the big item is to look at, well, how much are we crediting?
And that's my question. So when you say easier to apply and how much are you crediting, that has to do perhaps with changing the income threshold?
Yes, yeah.
And so what are you looking at there?
Well, for example, so the last few years, like it's not, we don't get the information on how, like an absolute number of customers that apply, because it goes through the Salvation Army. We get basically for a dollar number, for example, we know that we had about I think it's $10,000 or $11,000 worth of credit applied to this program last year. So and the max credit at that time was the $450 or $550 if you're a family of four. Like the credit is applied based on the customer's details, like how many folks are living in the home and that sort of thing. So the max amount per customer would be that $500. So it's not wildly used. So I would say that there's probably a subset of folks that could qualify that aren't using it because they're not aware of it. So we want to try to make sure everybody's aware of it. But there's also, estimating how many people will do this and how much we end up spending on it will evolve through the next year or two when we get a different rate structure and we get more awareness of the program. I don't know if that becomes a good question.
So you're giving up revenue is what you're doing, right?
Yes.
Based on consumption, they can't pay, so you're reducing the revenue you get. Any questions, Councilor Mays, Councilor Tree?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So with respect to the H2O Help Others program, do you or does the water utility do you liaise with say Manitoba Hydro or any other utility to find out if there are any consistencies in terms of this program versus what they may offer? I know that with Manitoba Hydro, there is legislation that states they can't cut off service between, I believe it's November and April. Do you have any similarities in terms of reaching cross utilities and seeing how they deal with issues like this?
I'm not sure if we have a formal touch base, but I know that informally we do contact, share notes, that sort of thing. The specific to the H2O program though, like the Hydro directly deals with Salvation Army on it, and we don't necessarily have the same eligibility criteria. We are looking to make sure that we aren't way out of
Scope.
Yeah, way to scope. So no, it's a good question, and I'd have to dig a little bit deeper, but I'm pretty sure we don't have a formal agreement, but I know we did reach out to say, okay, as part of this review of what we do, well, what do they do?
Yeah.
What do the utilities do? So just to make sure that we're on the same page or close to the same.
Great.
Questions? I have. So on the, what's the water leak one called again?
Water leak credit policy.
So you were saying that one would have to, if to qualify, you're giving regular readings, but when you look at the water bylaw, the customer is required to provide only one actual reading.
We're required to give us one, like our staff, one physical eyes on your meter a year.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty low bar, but unfortunately, we do have trouble consistently getting that one reading. Sometimes we don't get access to homes, and you can, go 1 or 2 years without having these readings. And if it's phone-ins, or some customers don't phone in the readings at all until they get a giant leak, and then if we're trying to be able to demonstrate an accurate history of water usage to make sure we're qualifying the leak properly.
Readings base a decision on setting back to what their usual consumption is. Okay.
Well,
You know how many times that's been used in the long?
There's a committee set up to review the applications. I used to be on it. So I want to say 1 or 2 times a year at least. Sometimes it's very straightforward, like people qualify right off the bat. Somebody's had a leak, they provide regular readings. Here's the plumber's bill. It was a toilet flap was leaking, and it's pretty open and shut. And I don't even know if the committee even convenes a meeting. It's straightforward. Where it becomes more noticeable is when people don't qualify and they want to kind of make a case otherwise. So it happens a few times a year, a couple times a year.
I've had a couple in my ward over the years, so. Somebody like to move?
I'll move.
Yep, move the verbal report. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Hi.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Report number 3, the opt-out program for the advanced water meeting solution. We're asking for a 90-day layover.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for 9 days to get our input from the consultant that we're about to award this project to. This actually follows the previous reports we were just talking about in terms of, the sooner we can get our AMI in there, the better customer service we can have about getting on top of leaks earlier and removing the need for manual reads and sort of things. So, the extension, we're asking for about 90 days. I believe that report, I believe the consultant's being awarded, I want to say, this month. So we can come back after we get their input 90 days from now and give another verbal report update to see what, sorry, this isn't verbal, written report update, to see what kind of options. Not that we anticipate a whole lot of options different than we've talked about before, but we would like to get these folks input on this.
Just to be clear though, too, there's a delay too as well. Has the department actually made a final decision on which technology?
No, I think that'll be with the first stage of this is the assignment for the consultant to help us deliver the project, but the selection of technology will be I believe a separate tender, like to actually get we'll specify what type of meters we want with this input from this consultant, and then the market will get a winning bidder to supply us.
Who was it that had?
This was moderately controversial, so we 6 months would up to whatever, we should let some of these people know. I mean, I've had other meetings on other subjects and people started in on this, so we should be clear to the public. It will be an opt-out, but what it'll look like, when that comes, we should be clear about it.
Okay, I moved it. Go ahead. If there's no further questions, Councilor Edie,
Go ahead, you have.
I'm happy to move the extension.
What?
She's moving the extension.
Oh, you are, okay. All those in favor?
All right.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried. Thank you. amendment to the lock rating by.
Here it is.
Is that a big smile?
Yes. The only two people who noticed this, yourself, Mr. Chair, and me.
So this is about
Beaming.
appeals about lot grading and it
Yes.
is very controversial.
Yes, yes, the report before you here is the delivering on a motion made last year about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, actually, yes, sorry, yeah. I'll get this a minute. Previously, appeals under the lot grading bylaw were heard by this committee. So when there was an issue with between folks and the public service about application of the lot grading bylaw, any appeals would come to this committee. That was a motion to be removed from committee and change the bylaw so that it comes to an appeal committee similar to some other appeal committees here at the city for various bylaws. So this report is recommending that the change. The appeal committee would be the CEO, CFO, Director of Planning, Property and Development, and Director of Waterway, or delegates.
Or,
Yeah.
you can delegate authority, right?
Yes, and the important thing to note, this would set up also a fee. Previously, there was no appeal fee for this sort of thing. It's very common for our appeal committees to have a nominal fee to hear the appeal, so that would be established as well. It's $331. So that matches other appeal fees. So that's the motion before you today.
Questions?
I'm delighted to see this because we had a couple of controversial ones with, I won't go into the detail. That's what spurred this frustrated motion finally. Much as I like councillors to have decision-making power on this one, it seemed like we were spending a lot of time. We were all over the map on the results. And you had some of these ones where the person at the east end, it's essentially swales and ditches and stuff. We needed to delegate. So I'm very pleased to see this come forward.
Excellent. Which means I participated in a number of those appeals. I know you didn't like it because I asked too many questions, but
I wish that was like.
So if there's no other questions, we'll have Councillor Mains.
I would be delighted to move the public service recommendation on this.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried. Six, we on six? Yeah.
5.
6, okay. Approval of contract over expenditure number 13 for design build of North End Sewage Plant, Newpick, I think is what we're using.
Number 5 is an item pertaining to 151 William Stevenson Way.
Drainage. Report number 5, we skipped that.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're right on number 6, that would be.
Yeah.
So moved for 151.
Oh, there we
We
go.
can get into the main.
Oh, the agreement service and land drainage over Sir William Stevenson, that would be in your ward, actually, Councillor Rowlands, is it not?
William Stevenson is,
It's right by the,
It is in your
Baseball
ward,
stadium.
it's in the Forks.
Forks,
yeah,
So you're moving that?
yes, sir.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, that is carried. Pardon me, my voice wasn't talking to me. Okay, 6, the approval of contract over expenditure 13 for design build of the North End
yes.
Newpick upgrade headworks facility project.
Yes, so in this report, actually, the next 3 reports are all kind of related. And very serendipitous here that they're on the same agenda. I guess I'll just do them one by one here as they are, but this over expenditure report is for work at the North End plant on the headworks contract under the Project 1 budget. So there's change orders, little extra work, that comes up as the contract's being executed. This one specifically is for payment of $1.27 million for an upsized water main. So this was a change initiated by the city. We identified a deficiency in one of the water mains that we're going to use for a fire loop. Needs to be upsized, so we added it to the scope of the contractor. It's $1 million extra. It's all still within the project budget, and we still have contingency for this. But because of the way the existing city project rules are, this particular contract, the Headworks project, as you may recall, has had a change orders in the amount of, I think we're up to 57 million. And that was because the North End plant, the Northwest Interceptor failure that we talked about last year or before last now, had a very large impact on the project, and was a big change order. And also there was a bunch of soil issues there that was part of a change order. Getting us up to the 57 million brings us past the $10 million delegated authority we had for this contract. So for the Headworks contract, that's part of the project one. So Headworks contract, which is $328 million contract. If we have a $1 change order, we have to come to committee right now because we're over the 10 million that we're good. So that's why this $1.27 million upsized water main has come to council for this. This is the sort of situation that was flagged in our audit in terms of construction practice and construction risk. If you think about it in terms of the go ahead to do this work is given to a contractor, but they really don't know if they actually are allowed to be paid it until 2-3 months later when it goes through committee. So it's not a best practice for this type of contract and over progressive design build. Well, this is a design build. This isn't a progressive design. It's for any contract really. It's just the dollar values here make it highlight the issue. On a smaller contract, we would have built-in authorities that allow for that. It's just that this is a big contract, so the percentages turn into giant numbers. Sorry, having said that, I do want to highlight as well that buried in this report, we do update the ongoing contingency allowance, and there's a bit of good news in here. We do have some money back from, we had encumbered some money of our contingency money pending the results of an insurance claim. So the Northwest Interceptor insurance claim, we did get a bit of money back on one item. So there's actually almost $2 million coming back to our contingency from insurance claim. So we're ahead $2 million, but 1.2 we have to go out for this new water main. So it's just saying that as we go, and there'll be more change orders on this project as we get closer to finish. That table included in this report does try to track all the change orders, the pluses and minuses. Some of them are in our favor. Obviously, the net is not in our favor because of that 57 million, but there is an additional $1.98 million coming to us for this report. So that's good. But that's not the main item here in the report. The main item in the report is this water main work. Yeah. That's yeah.
Questions? Yes. Questions?
Yeah, I do have
Council
questions.
rules, yeah.
I just wanted to not necessarily break anyone's stride if we were gonna deal with all three and introduce all three together. Mr. Shanks had indicated these next three agenda items go together. I agree because, both are motions that are required, and then the butt of the argument, I think, is located in item number 8, which is a little motion that gets us on the way to delegating an authority in a tier here. So I was my first question is, did you want to handle all three of these items together?
I just meant in terms of context to understand all these three items, like the approval order. I mean, it all has to go.
Your chairperson's okay with, like, if you want to vote on them on a omnibus, do I need a motion, Mr. Harris? Yeah, so anyway, go ahead and present the other reports and then.
Okay, well then the report number 7 is the approval of contract over expenditure. This is for the professional engineering consulting services. This is AECOM's contract for delivery of all three projects for the North End plant. This is something that comes to committee at least once a year. And it's complicated and it's kind of misleading. We obviously we're sensitive to the language of contract over expenditure. That's the mechanism here that we do this, but in actuality, it's not like it's a surprise change to the contract. It's a planned supplemental expansion of the contract that was always intended as part of the engineering assignment. So what I mean by that is like when many years ago now, when we were starting this project and going to deliver the North End plant as one project, not 3 projects it is now. The tender went out for the consulting engineering services to help us deliver that project, the design, the contract admin, preliminary design, this kind of thing. So it went out, it was tendered, competitively bid, AECOM won it in 2015.
What we usually call owner's advocate.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So AECOM won this in 2015, and for reasons that I'm sure made sense at the time, they decided to only, so the contract was won, but to not encumber all the costs up front, they wanted to award the contract in phases, and then subsequently, as different phases of their work proceeded, we would just do these supplemental contracts where we would add the money. So the scope of work was always defined as helping us upgrade the project. We then split into 3 projects, which like the dollar value here has changed, obviously, because the amount of work has changed. These projects got more complicated and there's more interactions and this sort of thing. But the overall concept of these folks were going to be our engineers for this, to upgrade this plant. We changed the order of how we're upgrading the plant, but we always intended to add every stage of their work with these things that we have to call over expenditures. It's very awkward messaging. I apologize for it, but this too was identified in our audit as these are our plan stages. There's an approved budget for it. It's an additional, I wouldn't say cumbersome, but it's an additional stage here that isn't necessarily recommended by the auditor. So they're saying you should get specific delegation for this project to complete the project up to the current estimated remaining dollars. Obviously, if there was change if something else happened and this became more expensive, well, then we would be back to for us straight up over expenditure to council or an increase in budget. But the audit said this particular project we should single out and get authority for. So
the estimated value?
The estimated value,
150 million?
my notes here. I believe it's referred to in project report 8. We have
This is for the owner's advocate.
sorry, I forgot to mention.
Yeah,
So Linda McCusker's here joining us by Zoom. She's the project director for our sewage treatment plant upgrades, all 3 of them. She works in our engineering group with Cynthia, and she's the lead of the team that's working on this. And so she's here for any detailed questions and if they only want to know more.
The total estimate for the owner's advocate
It's 150 million.
is 150.
Yeah.
So
And I believe it's 72 we've expended or we've committed, and then so our remaining 78.
About $78 million left.
Yeah.
We would be delegated to spend up to.
Say that again.
There'd be $78 million left on this contract that we would be our delegated report number 8 is asking permission for the public service to adjust this contract up, to a maximum of $78 million more before we would have to come back to council and change anything. That's right.
that's a projection to projects all the way to 3, right?
All the way through 3.
So
Yeah.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, what?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I was just,
So, I spent some time talking about this at council, with respect to a variety of categories, this being one that we needed motions for. I agree that the necessity to return to council actually could cost us money, especially for such, small sums. What you can see in the audit is the necessity to do some motions. What we have before us is certainly the motion of let's stop bleeding money with the churn of the necessity to come back to council and then waste some time, but we don't have the co-commitment lens for council. I'm prepared to move the whole suite, obviously, but I want to see a bit of a motion writing be between now and then for what I think is the rest. Council doesn't typically say, here's $100 million. No need to report back to us. I know that there is reporting back at the Finance Standing Committee. They're certainly reporting back here and with I've not seen a project that has as many reports as this one. So it's not like there isn't a lens on this. But at the same time, we know through the good work of KPMG and through, frankly, your own efforts over the years, first and foremost, which I think that should be acknowledged too, because at every turn in every paper, it's evident that you're communicating an order of magnitude to which an organization isn't necessarily there to catch. There's no catcher's mitt for that ball. And in part, that's fair. I don't know if I think Surrey feels the same way when I've read their reports. And they have as many, if not more, some that are publicly available, God bless them. That the sophistication of the catcher's mitt is sort of what I'm concerned about, to use I should never use sports analogies. Prepared to move, but I'm wondering if the department has a concept of what's next.
Oh, yeah.
I know you and Jeff Patton have been working together. Do you have a concept of what's next in terms of the suites through the chair of motions?
Thanks can give you, but we were briefed, all of us, about the audit, and we know that we're moving forward with basically all their recommendations. Maybe not fast enough for some people, but we are moving forward. But
Well, that's what
you can answer the question. Go
asking
ahead.
through the chair. I'm asking for.
I'm saying
if
there's
we're
no need
moving-
for you to move any motions in regards to the audit at this committee.
If we're moving forward, the sense of the timeline would help me not move motions.
It was, great comments, great questions for sure. I would point out this, very important distinction you made about, the improvements in governance, the different governance structure, different reporting structure, to be created goes hand in hand with the recommendations to delegate all sorts of authority, right? The audit saying, we should delegate essentially the entire project budget to the public service to administer without the authorization to spend and keep coming back. The entire project budget, billions of dollars.
I saw that too.
We're, as much as we would love to be asking for that today, we recognize we're not asking for that because those other improvements are not there yet. To your point, we don't have the new governance structure. We don't have a new committee created. We don't have this, our chief construction officer structure, not in place yet. So these are very narrow requests today on very, a very small portion of what we will eventually be asking for delegation for. So very, very important point. But to your other question, I guess, about timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, we think that, you gotta keep in mind, the audit looking at the entire plant upgrade has recommendations that don't necessarily apply uniformly to each of the three projects in execution. So we want to make sure that we spend time and effort on applying the recommendations to projects where they get the most value. What I mean is, you know, the reporting structure or the risk management register on power supply and headworks, we're so far along in the project. You know, if we would be introducing more risk than removing risk if we're gonna mess with some existing contract structures, sort of thing on that project. However, like project 3, you know, we should have everything in place before project 3 gets to the point of you know, execution, right? We're looking to move on procurement later in the year on that, later this year, on that, like July, August sort of thing. We want to have all the recommendations in place that deal with procurement risk in hand before we go out to procurement for project 3. Project 2 is kind of, you know, off the runway, but not quite a cruising altitude yet, sort of thing. If I can, maybe that's not an analogy. It's not a sports analogy, at least, but
I prefer it actually, aviation, much better.
So that there are most of these recommendations we can put in, but not necessarily all of them. The governance structure, we are working, I know the motion last week at council about sole sourcing some resources for KPMG to kind of help map it out. There is a structure, actually it's a KPMG white paper that speaks to, you know, recommended governance structures already, that we have some ideas on how to implement. You know, it will be 1 or 2 months of a reporting cycle before we can get some of these things in place. We do really want the chief construction officer to have some input on this. So that's, you know, April 1st, I think it started. So we're looking at this, you know, spring. We would like to have a proposal of a different reporting structure. The KPIs, the other indicators on how we communicate what's going on with the project. That's clearly jumped out of the audit for me anyway. Was like we have SPC reporting that, you know, there's standard formats and there's a lot of great information in there, but often it's hard to really get a high level sense of, you know, where are we, like you mentioned Surrey, like, you know, where you have other projects that try their best to kind of, I want to say simplify, maybe clarify, to help the increasingly higher levels of governance get a sense of what's going on without having to go through pages and pages of charts and numbers. So that is something we're working on. We need to have that in hand for a new reporting structure. I want to venture to say, just trying to be realistic, that we might have a few iterations of that. Maybe our first kind of reporting, you know, structure will be improved upon throughout the year. But I think we would like to have a skeleton set up soon this year, summer. You know, if you think of it in relative terms, the urgency of some of this work. I mean, we can't underplay the urgency of the work. Obviously, timelines are critical here. But in practical terms, our next big milestone is starting the procurement for project 3. We can't delay that. It has to start this year. So we need stuff in place before that procurement starts. Versus, you know, next week we're not starting at procurement stage. What we're doing right now versus what we do next week doesn't really incur a lot of risk on these things. It's as we get to these big stage gates, like that term, but we use a lot of stage gates, as we get to different stage gates of these projects. Those are the deadlines that we're working back from. I'm not sure if Linda, do you have anything you want to add? I'm kind of all over the map here, but go ahead.
No, I think you explained it there.
Councillor Mays has a question.
Okay, I had 3 things, one of which has been answered, which is we're not simply, there's a governance structure coming here. So this isn't just, let's do the delegation now and we'll sort out the other stuff. Never. And so that's good. And I'll come back to the question I had about item number 8, recommendation 2, which is kind of hard to get talk about the owner's advocate, but the real question I had was about, and you may have touched on it with that aviation analogy about being off the runway on hopefully airborne, not sideways on biosolids. I was yabbering at council about this contract 447 that we've tendered out work to get construction underway. We're in the piping's being done, as I understand it, for biosolids. So if you can speak a bit, how are we off the runway? And that leads to, there's a cryptic reference to over expenditure number 8, which is anticipated, I guess. No, this is report 7, not 8. Sorry, I'm on report 7. There's a reference to anticipated over expenditure number 8 on biosolids construction. So can you talk to me a bit about that? Like we are on the way, construction has started on biosolids, is my understanding. We're off the runway, whatever. Can you just talk to me a bit about what's happened to date and what is this anticipated over expenditure? So it was on
Yes.
report 7, not 8.
Yes,
So
we have a table here somewhere. We're talking about further phases. Yeah, so a couple things, like the early work, early works for some of these projects are stuff that we don't necessarily need to wait for the full design. The easy example on one end is, as you mentioned, there's a construction right now building the site complex, the site trailer, running some piping in and this kind of stuff. I mean, that would be start of construction, but that's not necessarily, process design, buildings being built, this sort of thing. So early works are what we refer to when we got to take advantage of small pieces of the work that we know won't change with the future design and that we can get started on right away. How are we airborne with biosolids? I mean, we've selected our design partner and our progressive design build partner, and are working towards and I'm going to get this phrasing wrong again now, the development phase agreement. So we're sorting things out essentially on a time and materials basis kind of thing, where we will get further along in design, and then the next big stage is when we decide to proceed with the start of the bulk of the construction. So that's where we're in that kind of first stage of that project now for biosolids. Question about these upcoming supplementals. So on page 5 of report 7, when we talk about the future phases for the owner advocate contract, the construction phase, the tendering of some of these early works, some of this kind of work for biosolids, that would be the supplemental 8 that we're anticipating. And then the three different tasks for this, for the engineer for the project 3 nutrient removal, are the supplementals 9, 10, and 11 that we expect. I'm going to ask Linda again, maybe if you have more clear way to talk about, supplemental 8. I'm not sure if I'm doing it justice.
Okay. Supplemental 8, that's for the owner's advocate? Is that what we're?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Like the anticipated work we have for the owner's advocate, that would be one of these things we're looking for delegation of authority to be able to green light and proceed with.
Okay, 1 second.
That's essentially, I believe, the support for the development phase.
Oh yeah, so that's that's the support once we enter the development phase. So that's AECOM's, that would be our owner's advocate. So the development phase, that's kind of when we start the construction. So they would have, the site presence, they'd be reviewing the designs, like all that. That would be into that next phase.
And can you just explain there's sort of the third thing was under report 8, that's on me. So report 8, item 2, authority be delegated to approve contract or expenditures for the owner's advocate. Okay, I'm with you. The total contract value does not exceed the following. And then there's the CFO and the director of water and waste. Like, can you just, what is that? That's hard to follow.
You mean in terms of, like, the anticipated remaining amount of the contract, right? Is like, we think the top end of this contract right now would be $150 million. We should be able to do this for under 50 million or less. It's budgeted for that. We have the budget. And so essentially what this is asking for is, those supplementals we just talked about, we're essentially asking for them not to have to come to SPC to award, as long as they, well, I can award when we get up to the total contract value of 100, like there's 78 million left. So once we get up to 100, then I can't do it anymore. Tracy, the CFO has to sign
Well,
off on it.
can I just get a tiny bit of clarification? So, this is, they're moving on to phase 2 into the biosolids. So they've already, our owner's advocate has already gone out and costed many of the items that are going to be inputs into the new biosolids. That work's already done. So what's the continued work that they'd have to do on project? Just to give us a better idea, because it's,
Yeah.
there's, so they're monitoring
Yeah, like
progress,
the
right?
progress, but it's also like the contract administration support. Like, it would be, if you think of, maybe an easier analogy would be like a conventional mega project that's only, tens of millions of dollars. It sounds crazy, but where we hire an engineer to give us a design, and then execute the contract, working with us to do the progress verifications, the quality control inspections, this sort of thing on a small project. This is the same thing, except it's that much larger in scope and consequence, because the project is that much bigger. And there's additional, like if you think of the partnership sessions we do with administering that. I wonder if there's one in.
Well, that's enough. I'm sorry, I just wanted to, for the public, to just get kind of an idea what kind of work, but, so, and then with project 3, so overall it's 150 million, but as that thing's going through and you're talking about starting procurement now, they're assisting with that, right?
Yes, so that
So that's
150
more work that they're doing.
well, but that $150 million estimate includes project 3 support. That's the whole.
But at this point, they're gonna help you with procurement, they're not gonna be.
Yes. Right. Well, and for project 3,
Have you selected who's doing project 3?
no, not yet, but for project 3, we do have like the enhanced preliminary design, like where we got a more detailed design of the project as it exists now, which is different than it was envisioned in 2016. There's different, well, the timing obviously is different, but the order with other mega projects happening at the same time wasn't necessarily envisioned at the beginning. The new, I guess I'm getting into a future report here, but there's a different capacity lifetime. We're designing this now for a longer lifespan, because here we are on 2025. It's not 2016 anymore. We can't design for 2032 growth. So the plan would be done and be out of capacity. So that enhanced preliminary design of project 3, AECOM would have done that. So, yeah.
Okay, anyway, I just wanted that to be clear. Did you have further questions, Councilor Weiss?
Just one, and thank you for the clarification on that delegation item. So we're underway with biosolids. We're, after whatever analogy one wants to use, the construction underway. Are we still on pace to be done in 2030?
Linda? 2030 for biosolids, I believe that's our target.
Well, we have looked into that, and that's part of the plan, because we did several analyses to see if we can actually achieve it in 2030. 30. There is a lot of risk associated with that. So I think that the current plan is,
The overall, not,
yeah.
not nutrient removal, I'm leaving that out of the question. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. Yes. It is 2030 for biosolids. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, and we have the capacity to build that, we've got. Okay.
Yes.
That's your one question. Councillor Rollins, no more further questions?
While we're on the topic, and then I'll, be happy to move omnibus fashion 6, 7, 8. There was a lot of things you put on the record before the holidays. Folks were watching with respect and interest to the capacity to build in the future in Winnipeg. Previous council had heard it's, we have a handful of years left. Is that still the estimate, or is it more like 2 years?
When is that?
Well, we do it annually. There's a written report and a verbal update on the estimated treatment capacity, sewage treatment capacity, in the city. I want to say we do the one report in June, before the end of the year. Yeah, the estimate we would have tabled in November this year. Yes, would still hold for now. Capacity, it's not 2 years left, certainly not 2 years, but it is like estimating the treatment performance of the plant, depending on what kind of loads it gets, is very complicated, but also very important, right? Because, we could absolutely get into a scenario where the plant capacity to treat to the license limit would be impacted by, too much high strength sewage or too much sewage altogether, this sort of thing, which is what we're trying to estimate in that report. And so I believe our last thing was, for 5 years, 5 to 6 years or something, we were saying around, 23, 22. It doesn't mean, and I know if Cynthia was here, she'd have the great analogies, but she said it's not like it's a barrel and it's like one more cup of sewage and the whole thing explodes. It would be a deterioration in performance. It would be risk to process upsets, a degradation in efficiency, depending on weather. So wet weather, yes, wet weather flows. I mean, those are incident driven, but the analogy I know that I've heard before, we talk about, that somebody's your own health. There's different indicators, your blood pressure, cholesterol, this sort of thing. When you're operating beyond capacity on some of those things, it's not good. There's a risk to lose parts of the system. So that's when we're trying to estimate, well, when do we, some of those factors are very conservative in terms of it's very hard to predict population growth accurately. The existence or new wet industries that come to town could use more capacity than we're anticipating right now, or they could use less. That could work both ways. We've seen some large industries leave, which is awful. We don't want to see businesses leave, but at the same time, it opened up more room, more capacity room. So these things can happen in the next few years. It's hard to predict. I just want to say it's very important to know that we are not hanging all of our fortunes on completing this one project. I mean, we're doing our best to do this one project. We believe we'll get the digesters ready in time. But there are other things we're doing to try to help the overall system with digester capacity, if we're going to focus on digester capacity. The grit and grease removal we're doing at the other plants, the Headworks project itself at North End plant will help improve that. Anticipating what the performance level of the sludge is after our we've got South End plant up and running with biological nutrient removal. We got different types of sludge coming to North End. These things are all kind of in, I don't want to say flux, but they're kind of in play right now. As we progress, as we get closer to 2030, we should be able to refine that estimate. I believe we're going to make some improvements. We don't want to necessarily commit to that hard value right now, but we are doing everything we can on other aspects to try to manage the loading of the plant. I don't know if that, I just think that's important.
Actually, I had another question.
Oh, there we go.
When you're done.
I think you can go ahead, Councilor.
I'd asked the mayor at council last week about this cryptic announcement from December 18th, that was in the federal fall economic statement, $150 million. Is that tied to biosolids? It was about North End, but is it tied to biosolids? Do we know?
I really can't speak to that.
I believe that was one of the conditions, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was specific to project 2 or project 3 or if it was,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I don't.
It's specific to increasing the capacity. That's what Go ahead.
I phoned around almost every member of parliament. Clearly stuff was going on that week. So clarifying, the fiscal, fall fiscal statement proved difficult. In fact, in one case, I felt like I was letting them know what was in it. You can't speak to it because then no one called you. You have the second largest commitment in the fall fiscal statement outside of Surrey, BC. And there was no contact with the city after it appeared in.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't expect to be contacted directly like my office per se, but
Well,
I'm aware of,
You're the only one to contact through the chair.
There's an ongoing activity, Councilor Rowlands, to try to secure funding, right? I don't think it directly goes through Mr. Shanks. I think maybe it goes through the CAO.
And CO wouldn't have informed his one staff that there was 150 million in 2027 for their flagship project. That's hard to understand.
certainly the announcement through the public, through the CEO and CFO office was a point of conversation with, I like CFO and CEO did talk, like we did, it was flagged and hey, this is in their fall update, but in terms of, did I get a direct contact from the government, another level? No, it would come through the CFO and I guess political channels. It's like the ISIP funding, like, the government funding usually, corporate finance and counterparts at the province, usually these things fund from the province, that's my understanding. That's the kind of first tier contact. I'm kept in the loop via CFO and corporate finance to me, but that's not direct from, like, nobody from the province calls me.
Are we aware of any federal environmental regulatory requirements for biosolid? I mean, provincial regulatory requirements, I give you that, but any federal requirements?
Biosolids. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Unless, Linda, you know.
I'm not aware, no.
Water quality is provincial, right?
Yeah. Like environment.
It's all about. You were gonna answer, so.
No, I don't, I'd have to get back to you to confirm which,
Okay.
where the Federal Environment Act. I mean, biosolids, we're not discharging into a waterway, it's the reuse in the soil, I mean, the Provincial Environment Act.
Anyway, if there is anything, can you email the committee members?
Yep.
All right.
So moved 7, 6, 7, 8.
6, 7, and 8.
Confirm, Councillor, is that the administrative recommendation on all three?
Yes. All right then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Colleagues, I'm not going for nicotine. I have to go.
Okay.
So we're gonna take an approximate 10-minute break, but it won't be that long.
Okay.
We're making good time.
Hello, we're back to the meeting and we're now moving on to the report from the, oops, sorry, I'm way up there. The Climate Action and Resilience Committee 2024 Annual Report.
Yes, we have Ms. Becky Raditz here, the Manager of Office Sustainability, to speak to the next two items.
Thanks for having me. So just a quick introduction about the Climate Action Resilience Committee. So this committee was formed in 2024, it was created by council, so it's just completed its first year. So this report is on its first year of activity. It has 6 citizen committees and ad hoc committees council. The chair is Councillor Mace and the vice chair is Matt Driver, our acting deputy COO. And it's supported with coordination support by Laura Renfeld, who's part of the Office of Sustainability. It has 3 main mandates, so that's to advise mayor and council on climate change, engage community and support the public service, and implement the community energy investment roadmap, and updating the Winnipeg Climate Action and developing the climate resilience strategy, and supporting the work of the community in implementing climate action. So this very beautiful first annual report is for this update for today. In 2024, as a brand new committee, there was a lot of activities and like really forming how they work together, learning about city processes, city climate activities, and how that they can interact between the two. They put forward 3 motions in 2024. Resulting in 2 that move forward into projects. So that's researching methods to align actions for climate targets and to do public opinion research on Winnipeg climate action. The motion on tools and mechanisms to phase out use of natural gas was received as information. In 2024, they spent just over $5,000 on meetings and graphic design. Over $32,000 of professional, non-professional projects were approved and initiated in 2024, but that work will be happening in 2025. So they'll be put forward in April as part of the budget. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of our citizen leaders for all their work in 2024. They've done a lot in a short period of time. I'm really excited what they're going to get up to in 2025.
Yeah, that's really, I should comment, I think as chair, thanks to Becky for taking us through that report. It included a somewhat melancholy statement from me, I'll quote more from Laura Tyler, who is one of the people on the committee, saying, the city should seek our guidance on issues. It is very frustrating to see projects without the necessary climate change analysis approved. So that's not me, that's someone on the committee. So a learning curve in the first year, I guess, and we'll see where we go in the second year. Thanks to the community members for their role on this. This was not, this committee was more of a push of Councillor Gilroy, Councillor Rollins, maybe Councillor Allard a few years back. So I think it's still a learning curve in terms of where this fits in. Certainly it's a beautiful looking annual report. I would hope next year to have some more concrete, it's a metaphor, I suppose, some more specific achievements to put forward.
Councillor.
Questions of Councillor Bowe?
So you mentioned in 2025 a work plan. Can you give us a hint of where it is in the report or what to expect in terms of themes or attached to the terms of reference?
So yeah, I will speak to the 2025 work plan as part of number 10 on our agenda today.
Okay, well, that's fair. And then with respect to the terms of the folks that raised their hand, could you talk a bit about the recruitment process of the citizen committee and what that looks like?
So the Climate Action Resilience Committee of Council goes through the boards and commissions process. The other committees of council. So those applications for the 2024 committee were received in 2023 and gone through that process and approved by council at the end of 2023 for the 2027 year. And so for the 2025 year, we had half of the committee was up. There, because we had set it up to be staggered. Your term ended at the end of 2024. So half of the committee would have had to apply again, and so went through the boards and commissions process again at the end of 2024. So in 2025, we have the same people on the committee as they were before. It was half are in their second year, and the other half just started their second term.
And do you have a sense of why they stuck their hand up to serve the city and what areas of climate action they were interested in? Do you have a sense of that? In particular, their priorities, perhaps it is reflected in the work plan, but is there areas of expertise here that we should know about?
Well, the original direction from council had a pretty wide range of areas of expertise they were looking for, because climate action touches on everything. And so that was really part of the thought process of this committee. Of course, multifaceted people, I can't speak to everything they're interested in, but everyone is very passionate about Winnipeg and passionate about climate action. So that's definitely part of being on the committee. But we have expertise related to economics, buildings, natural systems, planning, landscape architecture, health, community systems, and like more than that, right, that they are bringing to the table. So we do have a broad range of interests and skill sets and experience that we're being supported by through this community.
I have another question pertaining more to the work plan, but thank you and congratulations through the chair to the committee. It actually feels like it should be more than 1 year under our belts in a weird way, because I feel like this has been since last term. But thanks, and it is a beautiful report. Yeah, it's true.
I can read
Counselor.
it.
It is true, to the chair. It is beautiful. It contains many pictures of Winnipeg, the committee. But the graphics are incredible. Counselor Edie,
Good,
yeah,
it's good. Are you moving the report?
I will actually give that honor to my colleague.
All right,
I'll move the annual report.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Here comes the work plan, number 10.
For number 10, this is the Climate Action Resilience Committee's 2025 work plan. Very much more of a functional document. So as I was saying, the committee has these three main areas of work. So that's advising mayor and council on climate change, engaging with community to shape implementation of our climate policies, and supporting the work of the community and advancing climate action. So this work plan is designed around those three actions. And then of course, there's some administrative processes that the committee does. There's also different types of activity that the committee does. So that's also part of the organization. So there are annual activities. So the committee does review the city's annual update on activities under the climate action plan. That's a report that goes to council. And it also, of course, produces its own annual report. There are activities that the committee does that are not led by the committee that are ongoing. So one of the activities the committee is doing is providing support and input into the Winnipeg Climate Action Plan Update Project, which is being led by the Office of Sustainability. We're anticipating activities under that this year. There's also activities that are led by the committee. So these would be motions. They're looking at doing more connection activities with communities, so looking at events or learning opportunities with partnering in the community. And then also they have the ability to create subcommittees to create more targeted work and where they can bring in more subject matter experts. And then another activity that they need to acknowledge in their work plan is that they can respond to requests from council or committee to do work. So in 2024, the Climate Action Resilience Committee did not receive any requests. They are there, and that is a resource to council and committee and public service. So, sorry, there's more. So those two projects that were approved in 2024 will be a big part of the activities in 2025. So that's researching methods to align actions with climate targets and public opinion research on Winnipeg climate action. So we're anticipating reports back on those in April. And in 2025, the budget will be more in the April meeting after the larger city budget process.
Councillor Rose, any questions?
In part, it was answered with respect to whether or not there was a delegation made to the climate committee in 2024. And you have, as part of the work plan, a item pertaining to in part the built environment that I don't see here that you said orally. I'll ask it offline.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah, built environment.
Yeah.
And you will take it offline then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are you moving this report?
I'll move the work plan.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Alright.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. And what we have is an addendum report, and I'm not gonna read Councillor Rollins, would you to allow us to hear a report related to the St. Vital Arena?
So moved, suspension of the rules to hear the item pertaining to the FCM St. Vital Arena application.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Alright.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. So who would be reporting on this, Mr. Shanks?
This is just a motion.
Is this you that came?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so
And thank you, Mr. Chair, for putting this on the agenda, because otherwise we'd be dealing with it 5 weeks later, I think.
well,
So-
Councillor Mays, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's an initiative. There had been an attempt to do a study at Dakota Community Center with the Twin Arenas that wasn't progressing, I guess. And then, as you'll know, Mr. Chair, from your experience with Westgate Arena, St. Vital Arena is city owned but not city operated. So the folks at GeoOptimize talked to the St. Vital Minor Hockey Association, which runs the St. Vital Arena, leases it from the city, has done it for decades. They're quite interested in this, so it's no city money, and certainly I don't think Brad Erickson's on the line here somehow, but it could be if this goes to EPC, municipal accommodations is supportive of it. I mean, it's essentially a letter of support or a motion of support for this application. One typo, and this is on me, that I should have caught earlier that I didn't catch this morning. There's bit here about the goal of the study is to capture waste heat from the indoor ice skating rink and distribute the energy to nearby homes and public facilities, including then it's got school, library, and personal care home. That's from other.
That's the West Bay one.
To
It's
take,
not like West Bay.
yeah, so no nearby library, unfortunately, take the library out of there. There's a nearby school and personal care home. So that would be the one amendment to what you see in front of you, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's not really sure why it comes up through this committee, to be quite blunt, but because it's more municipal accommodation than environment, but that's what the clerks told me to do, so that's what we did. So it'll all end up at EPC, hopefully, and they can decide whether to proceed with it or not. Oh, certainly, yeah. And I mean, there are challenges here, right? It's next to an old dump site, right, that goes under the Riel Park there, so this could be tricky, but it would be a good setting.
Okay. I don't think we have any questions. The administration, I don't,
Yeah, I'm
maybe
confused.
Becky wants to make a
I'm
comment.
confused why it's here and not an MA when Jeff Patton is working on with drawing down the FCM money for green builds, so that is confusing to me too, because I know they're working on it. And the Green Municipal Fund is, you know, something that they are drawing down in municipal accommodations, but it, you know, it all goes the same place, so I'm happy to vote for it. In context with the other things that we're drawing down.
Yeah, well, hopefully Mr. Patton's also looking at more money for the West K Arena. There's supposed to be a whole.
There is a study going on there.
Yeah,
There's
Yeah,
either
there's
that one or
the West K's happening.
St. James, yeah.
Yeah, it started. It took a long time to get it going. All right, then I'm just gonna call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Councillor Mays is moving adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you.
Good job, Chris
It's good to have a couple of pros on it.
Sure it is.